our public, in light of what the President was saying, if we compare that particular State of the Nation address and the blotted wage bill and the budget reading today and the debt burden that we have, you say it is actually at 11%. The capping is at 25%.
Yes, the recommended ceiling by IMF World Bank, yes, in terms of the ratio between your debt service, meaning the amount of you have to pay per year to service your debt, yes, and your export earnings is at 25%, and right now we are at 11%. What that means is that we can, in fact, double, for the same level of economic activity, we can double our foreign debt exposure. Now, I'm not saying we should double. I'm saying that there is room, there is headroom to double, even at the same level of economic activity. So I think we need to step away from the view that we are overborrowed and step into the view, how well are we using, how well are we investing, could we invest in areas with higher returns, what we borrow. And I think that now looking into the budget and what the budget will prioritize, then those will be the issues. And I think that the number that has been quoted often, this question of GDP to debt ratio, and as Polycarp said earlier on in his program, look, well, 42–45%, I mean, compare that to European economies at 100, 120, 140%.
Not many of them at that level. Well, that's Greece.
Yeah, that's Greece. But so generally, that number, although it's a good number to look at, it doesn't really tell you the full story. The full story is told by your ability to service the debt that you've picked. And that ability is by looking at what are your export earnings in relation to whatever. Now, I want to go to the cap in a moment and say that personally, I am a supporter of the interest rate cap. Now, policy making, and I tell you, no economist would prefer fixed anything. We prefer markets that are working. But when the market is not working, then the policymaker is forced to intervene to try and encourage the market in the right way. Now, this whole question of a high interest rate regime in Kenya is the subject of conversation. By the way, these attempts to cap interest rates is maybe the third or fourth. In the 10th Parliament where I served, Parliament had a go at it. We argued against it at that point and we were able to prevail. But we got some reforms, including around the management of the central bank. So, why do we agree with this cap? We agree with it because the financial market, the banking sector, is not a perfect market in Kenya. The banks behave in a sort of very oligopolistic manner. The whole sector is inefficient. Now, it's interesting that a couple of banks have shown, in fact, increased profitability, even in that period when we are talking about the cap and so on. So, we needed to encourage this sector to move in the right direction. What options were available to the policymaker? I think the policymaker, by the way, has played both options. One was the cap, and the other is this Emakiba.
Thank you. And of course, also we need to discuss about Emakiba briefly. We've been eagerly waiting for the Emakiba, and finally it's here, though it's taken so long. And of course, we've seen they've gone beyond even the 50%. What was that? The 50%, I can't remember.
Mark.
The mark that actually was put by Treasury. So sort of they've oversubscribed.
Not yet, but even the speed at which it is going, because you see, the offer will close April 10th. So given the speed at which it is going, it will most likely be oversubscribed because 50% of it has already been taken up.
Let's hear from Mike Eldon. Emakiba, this is a way, because the government also, we're talking about trying to service our debts, trying also to, have our operational expenditure. The government at now, as we know from KRA, they've not been able to hit their targets as well. So this is another avenue for the government also to be financing some of these projects that you're talking about. Just maybe you can highlight on that a bit, Michael Eldon.
Well, first of all, on KRA, I like what I've been seeing about the way KRA has been working, above all, on automation in order to increase compliance and to focus more intelligently on those who are evading taxes and go after them more selectively. But more generally, this business of whether we're a command economy or we're just pushing people when they need pushing and these sorts of issues, I think generally what we lack here and in many other countries for that matter is credible mediators. And we've seen this with the doctors, we've seen it with the teachers and the university people. And yesterday too, I was listening to the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and he was talking about his job there to build cohesion. And I was asking him to tell us more about the quiet work that he and his commission do on doing conflict resolution around the country. And he spoke at some length about how he did it here and he did it there, and he brought leaders together from these two communities for 4 days. I think that's what we need more of. You do a lot of that, don't you? You've been doing so much of that. We need more of that so that it's not either this or that. It's not the win-lose zero-sum stuff that we're so good at in this country, in America, of course, now, Brexit, everything. Until we are able to have domestic, influential mediators who can bring people together quietly behind the scenes, preferably so actually that hardly anyone knows they're doing it, like it was with Caparo in much of his activity, we will continue having either this bad solution or the other bad solution, instead of going for some sort of sensible consensus building with an adequacy of win here and win there. And I think that is the challenge to this country. And it all comes, I think, from the role model of zero-sum politics, where actually either I am the NASA leader or you are, and either NASA wins or Jubilee wins. And we think that everything, therefore, has to be like that. But it doesn't.
It doesn't. All right.
I quickly, a microcosm of what Mike is talking about is the way we operate round a roundabout. If you look at when we get to a roundabout, no one is thinking of the group, right? Yeah. If we thought in the group, and everyone would be moving faster. Every instance when I have a road in front of me, which is open, someone will come and block me, right? And this road is blocked. And I actually think that that is the microcosm. We could increase our GDP by 2 or 3 percentage points. And maybe psychologically we've got to fix the roundabout, because then we'll all start thinking in a very different way. We won't think me, we'll think all of us. And I think that's what Mike's talking about. So I agree with Mike, and I would say if you really want the evidence of it, look at how we're driving. Because there you can see nobody is thinking as a team. Everyone is thinking me. And that thinking me is stopping a much faster movement that could happen. And I think that's also the case at times in the economy. If I can just quickly touch on 2 quick points. I mean, if you look at, I was in the UK at the time of the European Union when every country was coming in. And there they had this Maastricht criteria, and the Maastricht criteria was 60% debt to GDP, and the idea was that every European nation should be below that. Of course, that never happened. But just to give you a sort of feel of where I think the number lies at around 60, when I think it becomes a little bit dangerous. What do I mean by dangerous? Dangerous is what's happened in Angola. Currency has dropped dramatically, right? You've seen a drop in the currency of about 40 to 50% since 2014. What does that do to your debt service? It causes a lot of pressure. So I think, one is okay within a certain band, But once you start tipping over the band, then you've got a lot of potential curveballs which can exponentially accelerate the situation. And finally, I think, you know, just internationally speaking, I would prefer us to be talking a more conservative language when it comes to debt. Simply because, you know, we need to differentiate ourselves from our peers on the continent, and that's a very easy way to do it. Take Ghana, which is an extreme example which caught my attention recently. The president appointed 110 ministers. I mean, the optics of that is, it's like, it's insane politics. I don't understand. Why would you want to be on the front page of every single global paper going 110, right?
And I want to support, I welcome what you're saying. I think we need to be conservative when we are talking about debt. But very quickly, coming to join it to the point around KRA.
Yes.
There are three things people look at when they're lending you money, whether you're a government or whether you're an individual, largely. First of all is identity. Are you who you are? Okay? Secondly, they then look at, do you have ability to pay?
Yeah.
Then thirdly, they look at your character. If I give you this loan, what will the first thing that you will do? Will you go to the club and start enjoying disco and entertaining yourself? Or will you go and buy a house or do what you wanted to do to create value? Basically three things: character, identity, and ability to pay. And I tell you what, I think Kenya passes muster in all the three of them. I think you brought a very good point here around KRA, because our ability to pay our debt is what I really deal with every day. KRA has a lot of work to do. We have 8 million Kenyans who should be paying taxes every month, income taxes. Today, only 2 million of them do so. So our fiscal pressure is so poor. We have so few of us. To be honest, how can a country of 14 million be funded by 2 million people? It's shame on KRA.
Right.
And I don't think there's a lot of focus in government around revenue collection. We are looking at too much expenditure, but so many of us are getting away with murder. And then we are packing all these profits, which should be in taxes, in very ugly buildings all over the city.
Do you not like any of the buildings, Polycarp?
In real estate, there's a lot of free cash flow that's going into unproductive assets. And the way maybe policymakers must look at this is to start thinking about capital gains tax. Honestly, I was sitting in Treasury.
Please don't bring it to the stock market. The last time they brought it to the stock market, we went down 1,000 points.
We just have too much slush funds that are going into very. How does a building of 20 stories create jobs? No, seriously. That money should be in manufacturing. That money should be in our basket of manufacturing, our basket of mining, our basket of tourism, our basket of services, financial services and everything else. Kenya is a country of many baskets and many eggs. Let's stop this conversation around size of debt. Let's talk about our ability to pay and what we are doing with the money that we get, and how we move forward. I'm very eager to listen to Rotich about his expenditure today, and also to sort of listen to him, what he is going to do to make sure the fellows at KRA are collecting what they ought to be collecting. There are way too many of us who enjoy security, who enjoy water, who enjoy health, who enjoy education, and they don't invest in it. And that's the biggest shame in this country.
Maybe also we should our focus on the manufacturing sector.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to agree with Polycarp on the issue of broadening the tax base.
Yes.
If you look at manufacturing, when the Bureau of Statistics released the results, about 300,000 people are employed in the formal manufacturing sector, 2.4 million in informal. Meaning at the end of the day, the people contributing to the tax are a very small number of people compared to the population of the country.
Yes.
So unless we broaden the tax base, we will keep hitting on the same productive sector that is creating jobs with new taxes, burdening them further, making them uncompetitive. So we need to look at really how we can spread out this burden so that more of us pay tax. And that's really the burden of KRA. Figuring out how they bring everyone into...
It, to be fair
I know they are.
Yeah.
Okay, are they really?
Yeah, they
I know they're on the way there, but we keep talking about widening.
Okay, honestly,
but in defense of SMEs, you know, you see, in defense of SMEs, you see, we push small businesses to formalize and therefore be in the tax whatever, banned. But the services that we provide small businesses are dismal. Most of government policy is focused on large manufacturing. Yeah? For example, the institutions that traditionally supported small business were all collapsed into one or two. And there is hardly any major significant initiative to support small business. So yes, let us tax small businesses, I agree. However, we need to be providing services to those businesses. We need to relook at the ecosystem that can support small businesses. What happened to companies like small business, SEFCO, Small Enterprises Finance Company? What happened to companies like Kenya Industrial Estates? What happened to even institutions like IDB and DFCK and so on, which historically in the 70s into 80s were the ones that supported small indigenous enterprise.
Looking at the Business Daily today also, we have a graph representation of where they have their targets and their projected targets as well. You can see from there, I don't know if you can actually, yes, we have them there. So one at 1800, from 200 there, from June I think the 10th to
June 2010.
June 2010. 600. Yeah, June 2010, 2011, and then we come actually to June 2017. This is where they were. The projected is at least to rise to
1.7 billion,
1.7 trillion shillings. Yeah. No, billion shillings.
It's trillion.
It's trillion over there.
Yeah.
It says the tax money is expected to raise 300 billion shillings additional revenues in the 2017-2018 year.
Well, yes, you see, it is 1,700 billion, which is 1.7 trillion.
Yes.
But I think the big point of this graph is that, look, we have moved tax collection from just below 600 billion to about 1.6 trillion,
yes,
which is nearly triple. And the target, the projected at 1.7 trillion is 3 times what we were collecting just 7 years ago.
And let me dig in, and I'm saying we have done that with the same universe of taxpayers. This is the biggest shame. This data is just presented in financial. Take the universe. How many people are paying these 600? How many people in 2010 were paying 600 billion? And how many people in 2017 are paying 1.7? And I tell you, the number has not changed with more than 200,000 people.
But the debate also has been, why do we also need to rope in the Joakali artisans?
Let me move in there. I think everybody, let's agree, you talked about a very good analogy of the roundabout.
Yes.
The roundabout dictates that everybody pays their keep. And we can create a rate for small, medium enterprises not to pay taxes at the same rate of big players. Let's agree. Right. And there's this, and I disagree a bit, or I am of a different view to our politicians. They look at things from a big, small point of view rather than good, bad point of view. Any small person today will eventually become a big business. And my point around it is, we need to encourage, as you grow from a small enterprise, many of them are not even being able to be passed on to the next generation, because a father is very shy to tell the son or the daughter, actually, the profits I used to make is because I never used to pay taxes. You just can't translate. There's no succession. It's creating a big barrier. So I think small, medium enterprises, first of all, they work in that ecosystem of large enterprises. There's linkages. So I'll give you an example. A company like Unilever or a company like breweries, how many small, medium enterprises are tagged into breweries? There are transporters, there are people who come to give other services. For every one job you see in a big business, are 8 jobs. And we have done that research at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. It's a multiplier of 8. A big company, 8 small, medium enterprises around it. And I want to move. And so I say, let's change from big versus small to good versus bad.
It's not big versus small. It is the policy intervention that we are talking about, Polycarp. Because you see, small businesses are already contributing 80% of formal employment in this country. If you look at the survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics from last year, small businesses are responsible for 2.4 million high-paying formal jobs, which is far more than the formal manufacturing, or in fact formal or large private sector and government put together. So SMEs are contributing. Now, I would agree with you that SMEs can and should contribute more. But on the flip side, the policy environment must also be conducive. Now, let's talk about credit for example. If large companies are struggling with banking sector that is not innovative, imagine what is happening to small players who want 5 million or 10 million. It can take 6 months, 8 months for a bank to decide whether they're lending you 10 million or not, by which time the economic or business opportunity is already lost. So, yes, let us get SMEs to contribute more, but the environment needs to be very supportive of them.
Oh, thank you.